Now, still on SONA 2024, the president also praised the presidential employment stimulus that was launched 3 years ago, which has created more than 1.7 million work and livelihood opportunities. Let's unpack this in relation to youth unemployment, as we're joined by Lizelle Strydom, Director of Career Box Africa. Lizelle, thank you so much for joining us at News at Prime this evening. Now, the comments made by the president at last night's SONA regarding youth in particular weren't well received by many, especially analysts dealing with youth unemployment. What's your take?
Well, I think, to start off, there's quite a few strategies that government are doing. Like you mentioned, there's the SAYouth.mobi app. There's the work that they're doing with the National Youth Development Agency. There's the YES program. And there's a number of initiatives that they're doing that are making strides when it comes to youth unemployment. However, it's not enough. There's always more that is going to be needed. And I think there's also opportunity, for example, businesses to better support the government when it comes to youth unemployment. Something as simple as changing your hiring practices, implementing something like impact sourcing will also further help.
And speaking of that, the president praised the extension of the social relief and distress grant. What does it say about our state of affairs when the unemployment stats are rising with such relief grants? Is this something we should even be celebrating, notwithstanding those who desperately do rely on it?
Definitely not something we will be celebrating, but something that really pushes the issue of the urgency of job creation. That is a plaster for something that is not sustainable. We need to be focusing on job creation, identifying opportunities that create sustainable employment for people that are dependent on something that is not even of full usage to them.
True. I mean, that presidential employment stimulus that launched 3 years ago, it was hailed as a success, and also considering that talking about the 1.7 million people and the work opportunities, these 1.7 million people that the president refers to, when we look at unemployment figures in the country, it seems, that is just the tip of the iceberg.
100% agree, and like I said, it is something to celebrate because it's not something to celebrate because it's 1.7 million in the bigger scheme of things, but it shows progress and it shows that we are moving moving a little bit. But to my point earlier, there's a lot of work that we can do more, specifically from a business aspect and collaborating with government. There's something like I keep going back to the fact that organizations need to implement different practices. We got a huge unemployed graduates that are being declined because they don't have experience. What are the things that we can do in partnership with the government to better create more job opportunities? So I agree, yes, the 1.7 million is not something to be celebrated, but it is a move in the right direction.
Speaking of the private sector's involvement, it was quite often that you hear government speak of private-public partnerships as well. Are we seeing them being implemented if we're still having graduates being asked for work experience when they wouldn't have been able to get it in the first place? Are these private-public partnerships actually working, or is it just talk at this point?
They are working in pockets. For example, I'll talk about the BPO industry, which is the business processing outsourcing industry. There has been huge strides being made in terms of public and government partnerships. There's huge plans in terms of job creation in the BPO industry and how do we create more opportunities specifically for individuals who come from disadvantaged communities or have been excluded. There's not just conversations, there's actions, there's benefits, there's incentives that have really promoted that industry. So there is benefits that I see specifically in our industry, which is the BPO industry. And I think more of those initiatives and more access and more awareness around them will further incentivize organizations to proactively work with governments.
And are you finding that other industries as well are jumping on board and on the bandwagon of this trend?
Yes, and I say yes because I work for an organization that focuses on youth and women economic empowerment. We a recruitment and a development agency that bridges the gap from, unemployed to sustainable career opportunities. So I get to see the forefront and the hard face of individuals coming in desperate, looking for an opportunity. And I'm also at the forefront at the table with organizations and CEOs and people in the private sector that are actively trying to work with government and to make those differences. There is a huge focus from a corporate or private point to really work with government. I think what the challenge is, we're not moving fast enough. We're still very much backdated and need to move a little bit more quicker. Not only move quicker, but scale it more.
And speaking of that pace and being able to scale it more, from your conversations with, the youth that is distressed that are coming into your offices as well, seeking your help, and also your conversations with the private sector and these CEOs as well, what are they saying their challenges are when they're engaging with government on this particular issue?
Speed. Speed is one of them in terms of how quickly can we get things. We don't have the luxury of time. If we think about our unemployment stats for people between the ages of 15 and 24, they're increasing. It's currently 43.4% according to Stats SA. So speed is one of them in terms of getting the right people on the right table and making decisions faster. Not having to go through multiple channels in order to make a decision. By the time a decision is made, we're on the next set of graduates. We've got 100,000 graduates every year, So speed, I will say, for now is the most important thing that we need to be focusing on. We don't have the luxury of time.
Yeah, red tape has seemingly been an issue for a very long time when it comes to dealing with government. The president also noted that there was a drop in youth unemployment. He cited a drop of 1.9%, which takes us from 45.3% to 43.4%. Now, Lizelle, at this rate, if we are dropping at 1.9%, is it fair to say that, to get it to acceptable figures, it could take decades?
It is fair to say. However, I'm very much optimistic. I'm very much hopeful that through the right interventions, the right partnerships like we're talking about, getting this message, these conversations are important, challenging the government, challenging private to partner. I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into policy. I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into different incentives that are run by the government in order for us to change those trajectories and that speed of dropping those unemployment rates. It is a drop, which is a positive thing, but it is not happening quick enough. For me, I'm very much hopeful that we will see further drops, but we need to do it faster.
And considering that we have over 200,000 new entrants in the job market seeking employment every year, and speaking about that speed that government is unable to operate with, will it be able to keep up with these new entrants, even if we are able to decrease the youth unemployment rate?
So I can't speak on behalf of government, unfortunately, in terms of keeping up with it. I will say, though, with the focus on youth unemployment, with the focus on job creation and making sure that we have the right skills for the type of jobs that are coming, that's what we need to focus on. I think if we continuously drive the right skills and start matching the right skills with the job opportunities that are coming on board, we would be in a better position, but I can't say that we're going to be moving as fast as we should be moving.
And before I let you go, we have to talk about the buzzword, of course, Dinzwalo. Now, from your engagements with the young people who are coming into your offices on a daily basis, and what the president painted, this picture of democracy's child, this 30-year-old, do they correlate with the stories that you're hearing and seeing on the ground and the rosy picture that the president painted in his State of the Nation address last night?
So I will say this. In my industry, I'm able to speak to you today and have these conversations and own my title of Managing Director of a global organization. And I am an exception, very much like Dinzwalo. There are many other examples. I think using one example was just a way to showcase that there is opportunity, there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and he was using it as an example to motivate and get people to, just start believing again. But there are more examples of Tswala that I see specifically in my space and in my industry, but not on the scale that we need it to be in.
Definitely the exception to the rule, even though we must admit that many of them do exist. Well, Lizelle, thank you so much for joining us and your insights and sharing them with us at News at Prime this evening.